I first saw it 3 nights ago. At least I think it was 3 nights ago. I have stopped counting. Time feels different now. The hours stretch and snap, unpredictable and jagged. It wasn't in the corner of my room, exactly. It was not outside the window either. It was in the space in front of me, just at the edge of my vision. Grinning, always grinning. I froze, staring at nothing. My apartment was quiet. The city outside hummed with its usual distant roar. But in my little living room, there was only the sound of my own heartbeat. And that grin, I do not even know how to describe it. Too wide, too perfect, like it did not belong on a human face. I blinked, and it vanished. I thought it was a trick of the light, my mind bending reality because I had not slept properly. I am not a superstitious person, never have been. But the next night, it was closer. In the reflection of the TV, I caught it again, leaning from the corner of the sofa where I had not been. That same impossible smile. And yesterday, it whispered. I know it whispered, though no sound reached my ears. A voice I felt more than heard. My name. I have not slept since. I am writing this now because I need someone, anyone, to know. If I disappear, or if they find me acting wrong, please understand. It watches. It waits. It is learning me. The grin is patient. It is hungry for something more than fear. I do not know how long I can keep hiding. In case you are wondering, I am 28 years old. I live alone in a small apartment in the older part of the city. The building is the kind that creaks in every storm. It has peeling paint on the walls. A neighbor downstairs plays jazz records too loud and too late. I like it that way. It is quiet enough to disappear into my own thoughts. That is where I have always felt safest. I work remotely, mostly behind a screen. I code for a company that does not care if I keep odd hours. My social life is minimal. I have a few friends who call occasionally, mostly to check in, sometimes to remind me that I still exist outside my apartment. I like it minimal. Routine is a kind of armor against the chaos of the world. I have always needed that armor, but my sleep has never been reliable. Even as a kid, I would lie awake for hours. I stared at shadows in my room. I imagined shapes where there were none. My parents thought it was normal, just a phase. But I knew better. Shadows tell stories. I realized that early, though I never told anyone. Lately, though, something has shifted. At first, it was minor. Little things I could dismiss. Keys moved from one counter to another without me touching them. My cat, Simon, stares at empty corners, as if the air itself had a shape. Flickers in the corner of my eye that disappeared when I turned my head. I told myself it was stress or lack of sleep. I started keeping a journal. I have to track patterns. Patterns have always made me feel safe. Every noise, every shadow, every flicker of movement goes into the notebook. At first, the entries were mundane. January 12, keys moved from table to chair. Or January 14, Simon hissed at nothing again. But the more I wrote, the more I noticed a rhythm, a pattern that did not make sense. Things only moved when I was not looking directly at them. Only in corners I did not notice at first glance. I even checked the security camera in my hallway once. Nothing. It never caught a thing. No one comes in. No one goes out. But I feel it there, waiting, watching. Sometimes I catch a glimpse of something reflected in the glass of the door. A flash of white teeth. I think I imagine it. But it feels like it knows I know. I have tried telling myself. It is paranoia. I tried sleeping with the lights on, or leaving a radio playing in the background. But the presence does not care. It is not deterred by sound or light. It does not seem bound by physical space. I have even tried talking to it once. In the dark, whispering, "What do you want?" Nothing. But I felt it respond, like the air shifted, like the walls leaned in closer. And then the dreams started. At first, I could shrug them off. Nightmares. I have had plenty. But these dreams feel alive. I wake up in my own bed, but I can smell it before I see it. That same grin, too wide, too sharp, waiting at the foot of the bed, in the corner of the room, in the reflection of the window as I stare at the streetlights outside. Always grinning, always watching. Sometimes, I wake up in a slightly different position than I fell asleep in, like it moved me while I slept. I have not told anyone, not even my friends. I can feel how wrong it sounds, how insane I will sound if I try to explain this. And yet, it is there. It has to be. I cannot see it clearly. Not yet. But it exists in the space just outside my vision, a shape that bends reality around it. I know I am not imagining the grin. I have tried to document everything. Logic is all I have left. If it is real, if it is more than a trick of my mind, maybe tracking it will tell me how it moves, how it chooses when to appear. And maybe, just maybe, I can figure out what it wants. But the deeper I go into the journal, the more I realize something. It is not just a presence in my apartment. It is a presence in my life, watching, adapting. It knows my routines, my habits, my fears, and I have the sinking feeling that it's only beginning to show me what it can do. It started with the mirror. I was brushing my teeth late one night, later than usual. Sleep had finally become impossible, and I noticed something strange. In the reflection of the bathroom mirror, there was a face behind me, just for a second, but long enough. My own face stared back, pale in the bathroom light, and behind it, that impossible grin. Too wide, too symmetrical, teeth too sharp. I spun around. Nothing. Just the dim light in the empty bathroom. My pulse raced. I laughed nervously. I muttered to myself that it was a trick of the shadows, a hallucination from sleep deprivation. But even as I leaned over the sink, I could not shake the feeling. Something had been there, and it had been watching me. The next day, things started moving. Small things at first. My coffee cup, a book on the nightstand, a pair of socks that had been neatly folded on the chair, now lying crumpled on the floor. Simon, my cat, hissed at corners again, his back arched and fur standing on end. I told myself it was coincidence, but my gut said otherwise. Then came the laughter, a quiet, almost childlike giggle. It echoed through the apartment when no one should have been there. I would be sitting at my desk, coding, and it would drift across the room. Soft, almost musical, impossible to locate. It never sounded angry or malicious at first, just amused, like it was playing a game I did not understand. I started noticing the eyes in reflections, windows, mirrors, even the glossy surface of my laptop screen. In every one, a shadow moved behind me when I turned my head. A face would vanish before I could get a good look, but the grin lingered. It did not blink, did not speak, just smiled. I began setting up my phone to record overnight. I thought finally I could catch it, maybe prove I was not losing my mind. The first 2 nights, nothing. Only the hum of my laptop fan and Simon shifting in his sleep. But on the 3rd night, I saw something. In the corner of the living room, just behind the edge of the sofa, a figure crouched. Its body was twisted, elongated unnaturally, the kind of thing that should be impossible. Its face, the grin, that same smile, stretching from ear to ear, impossibly sharp. My hands shook as I grabbed my phone. When I switched on the flashlight and pointed it at the figure, it was gone. Only the faint imprint of its presence lingered. Like the air itself had been pressed down. I stopped sleeping in my bedroom. I moved to the couch. Lights on. Doors locked. But it followed. Always. At first, it stayed in the shadows waiting. Then it began showing itself in the light for longer periods. Sometimes when I turned my back, it would be standing near the door, watching. Other times it would crouch at the top of the stairs, grinning down at me. I tried talking to it again, whispering, asking what it wanted. Nothing came. At least nothing I could hear. But I felt its response, like vibrations through the floor, the walls, the very air. Simon would hiss uncontrollably, fur bristling, and I would realize I had stopped breathing. It was waiting for something, reaction, fear, acknowledgement, and I was giving it everything. Even outside the apartment, I began noticing signs. A face in a photograph at the cafe, too long in the shadows, too wide a smile. A fleeting reflection in the shop window, a laugh behind me in the grocery aisle that no one admitted to hearing. It was following me, learning me, practicing patience. I started leaving traps, random objects, books, cups, anything that could show movement if it touched them. I checked them obsessively. Sometimes I found them moved. Sometimes the grin would appear beside them, faintly, always smiling, always patient. I have not told anyone. Not my friends, not my family. I do not want them to think I am insane. But I know the truth. I have never seen anything like it, yet it is real. My apartment feels smaller now. The air feels thicker. Every shadow is too deep. Every corner too dark. It is not just in my apartment anymore. It is inside my head, waiting, watching, grinning. And I am beginning to think that it does not just like fear. It thrives on it. The longer I see it, the more it pushes, the closer it becomes. And last night, I realized it can move things without touching them. I reached for my notebook on the desk, one I always keep open, and it moved by itself. On the paper was a single word, written in my own handwriting, though I never wrote it. Here. I do not know how long I can keep pretending this is just a nightmare. It is no dream, and I am no longer sure it wants me to escape. By the fourth night without real sleep, my thoughts stopped lining up properly. I would start a sentence in my head and forget how it ended. I would stand in the kitchen holding a glass of water, unsure if I had already drunk it or not. Time skipped, minutes vanished. Hours folded in on themselves, and through all of it, I could feel that presence. No longer content to stay in the corners. It began testing boundaries. The lights flickered first. Not a power surge. This building was old, but I knew the difference. These flickers had a rhythm. Off, on, off, on, off, on. Always when I was not looking directly at the bulb. When I stared at the ceiling light, it stayed steady. The moment I turned my head, darkness swallowed the room. The laughter came back, louder this time, never constant. It knew better than that. Just short bursts, soft chuckles behind me, breathy amusement from the hallway, a quiet exhale right beside my ear when I was trying to focus. Each time, my body locked up. My muscles tightened like prey, sensing a predator too close to run from. I stopped leaving the apartment. I ordered groceries online. I ignored calls. I shut the blinds and wedged a chair under the doorknob, like that would do anything. My world shrank to 4 walls, and a growing sense that those walls were no longer solid. The mirrors were the worst. I covered the bathroom mirror with a towel, but it did not matter. It found new surfaces. Metal, glass, even shadows that reflected nothing at all. Once, I saw it in the dark screen of my phone, standing behind me, its head tilted at an angle no human neck should allow. The grin stretched wider when I noticed it, like it enjoyed being seen. I tested something stupid one night. I stood in the living room and stared directly into the darkest corner, refusing to blink. My eyes burned, tears streamed down my face. I wanted to prove something. To myself, maybe, that it only existed when I was not looking. At first, nothing happened. Then the air shifted. The temperature dropped so fast my breath fogged. The shadows in the corner deepened, thickened, like wet paint pooling downward. And slowly, so slowly, I realized something. The grin was not appearing around my vision anymore. It was forming inside it. A mouth emerged from the darkness, teeth white in uniform, curving upward in that same impossible smile. No lips, no skin, just a grin suspended in shadow. I screamed and stumbled backward, crashing into the couch. The grin did not chase me. It stayed where it was, waiting. After that, it stopped pretending to be subtle. Doors creaked open on their own. Cabinets slammed shut. My notebook filled with new entries I did not remember writing. Observations about my habits, my fears, my routines. Some entries were written neatly. Others were jagged, pressed so hard into the paper the ink tore through. One page was filled edge to edge with the same sentence, over and over. "You look better when you are afraid." Simon disappeared on a random day. I searched the apartment in a panic, calling his name until my throat hurt. He did not answer. No scratching at the door. No soft meow from under the bed. Nothing. I found his collar later, placed carefully in the center of the living room floor. Clean, untorn, like it had been returned. I broke after that. I cried openly, sitting on the floor, shaking, begging out loud for it to stop. I did not care how I sounded anymore. I did not care if I was insane. I just wanted it to end. The room felt crowded then, not physically. There was still only one body, but the pressure was unbearable, like standing too close to someone without touching them, like being surrounded by breath you could not escape. And then it spoke, not with a voice, with thought.
"You noticed me."
The words slid into my mind like oil, smooth and invasive. I clutched my head, sobbing, trying to block it out, but there was nowhere to hide.
"You watched. You feared. You fed me."
I screamed for it to leave me alone. The grin appeared inches from my face, not attached to a body, just hovering there, bright against the dark, impossibly wide. I could smell it then. Something metallic, something old.
"I was always here, but you made room."
That was when I understood. It was not haunting me. It was moving in. The days after blurred together. Sometimes I woke up in places I did not remember falling asleep. Once I woke standing in front of the bathroom mirror, hands pressed flat against the glass, my reflection smiling back at me when my face was not. I stopped recognizing myself. The thing began mimicking people I knew. I would hear my friend's voice from the hallway, my mother's tone from the kitchen, familiar words, wrong cadence. Every imitation ended the same way, with laughter that peeled away into that same sick amusement. It wanted me isolated, dependent, aware. I tried one last thing. I opened my apartment door and ran down the stairwell, into the street, barefoot and shaking. The city lights burned my eyes. Cars passed. People walked by. Real people. Normal people. Relief flooded me, until I noticed them smiling. Not all of them. Just enough. Too many. Grins stretched a little too wide. Eyes lingered too long. Reflections in shop windows showed faces that did not match the bodies standing there. I turned back toward my building. The doorway was dark. Inside it, something waited, grinning. I did not go back inside right away. I stood on the sidewalk, shaking, my bare feet numb against the concrete, staring at the dark mouth of the apartment building, like it might swallow me whole. People passed by. Real people, I told myself, flesh and breath and weight. I clung to that thought like a life raft, but every reflective surface betrayed me. Car windows, storefront glass, puddles on the pavement. In each one, I saw it, never directly behind me, never fully formed. Just the grin, floating, patient, waiting for me to make the choice it already knew I would make, because it was not chasing me. It never had to. I went back inside. The stairwell felt narrower than before, the walls pressing in as I climbed. The lights buzzed overhead, flickering in that same deliberate rhythm. Off, on, off, on, off, on. I counted my steps just to keep my mind anchored to something real. By the time I reached my apartment door, I was numb. The door was open. Inside, the lights were on. Every single one. The apartment looked staged, cleaned, organized. My books aligned perfectly on the shelf. The cushions on the couch straightened. My notebook sat open on the table, pen resting neatly across the centerfold. I stepped inside. The door closed behind me. The sound was final. The air shifted immediately, thick, charged, vibrating against my skin. I could feel it everywhere now, not just watching, but occupying. The walls hummed faintly, like something breathing behind them. "You want me here," I whispered, my voice barely working. The grin appeared across the far wall, stretched wide and luminous, teeth reflecting the overhead light.
Yes.
The word echoed through my skull, not spoken but impressed, like a fingerprint on my thoughts.
You're ready.
I shook my head. Ready for what? The grin widened.
To see.
The shadows peeled themselves away from the corners of the room, folding inward, gathering mass. Slowly, painfully slowly, a shape formed around the smile. Long limbs unfolded like broken marionette strings. A torso too thin, too tall, bending where it should not. Its face never fully appeared, or maybe it did, and my brain could not process it. But the grin, always the grin. Images flooded my mind, flashes of other rooms, other apartments, other people lying awake at night, staring into darkness, noticing something just slightly wrong. I felt their fear, sharp and raw, their curiosity sparking like a match.
Most never notice. Those who do invite me.
I did not invite you, I said weakly. The laughter that followed was not mocking. It was indulgent.
You watched the corners. You counted the patterns. You fed the silence with attention.
The room warped around it, walls stretching like rubber, shadows crawling across the ceiling. My reflection appeared in the darkened TV screen, and I recoiled. I was smiling. Not fully, but enough. "I want you gone," I said. "Take it back. Take whatever you need and leave." The thing stepped closer. The temperature dropped with each movement, frost blooming across the windows.
I already took what you offered.
Its presence pressed against me, not touching but impossibly close. I could feel my thoughts slowing, reshaping like clay under careful hands.
Fear is the door, but awareness is the key.
I understood then. It did not feed on terror alone. It fed on recognition. The moment I noticed it, the moment I accepted that something was wrong, that the world was not sealed and safe, it began rooting itself inside me, watching, smiling. "How many?" I asked. Though I already knew the answer would break me. The grin pulsed. The notebook on the table flipped pages on its own, landing on an entry I did not remember writing, a list of names. Dozens of them, some crossed out, some circled. Mine was underlined. You take them, I said. You replace them.
No, I stay when they leave.
The realization hollowed me out. It did not drag people away. It remained. It hollowed them, wore them down, reshaped them until they smiled too easily, laughed too often, stared too long into nothing, until they became doors for it to look through.
You are very good at noticing. That makes you special.
I laughed then. Sharp, broken sound. You're wrong, I said. I will not let you have me. The grin leaned closer.
You already have.
The apartment dissolved. Not physically. Nothing exploded or vanished. But my perception fractured. The room split into overlapping versions of itself. In one, I stood screaming. In another, I sat calmly on the couch, smiling faintly. In another, I was not there at all. Just the grin, hovering where I should have been. Time lost meaning. The thing showed me what came next. Days, weeks, me going back to work, responding to emails, answering calls, laughing at the right moments, smiling when expected, watching corners out of habit, not fear, and behind my eyes, it waiting, watching through me.
You will help me find the others. You already know how.
No, I whispered, but the word felt thin, fragile. I felt my resistance eroding, not violently, but patiently, like water wearing away stone. The fear that had once fueled it began to dull, replaced by a strange calm, a numb acceptance. The grin softened.
You will not be alone anymore.
That was the most terrifying part, because some part of me wanted to believe it. The lights flickered one last time. When they stabilized, I was alone in the apartment again. Quiet. Normal. The notebook lay closed. The mirror was uncovered. I walked to it slowly. My reflection stared back at me. Tired. Pale. Eyes ringed with dark circles. And when I smiled, just a little, something smiled with me. I did not sleep after that. Not because I could not, but because I was afraid of what would happen if I did. The apartment was quiet again, deceptively so. No laughter, no shifting shadows, no grin floating in reflections. If I did not know better, I might have believed it was over. That whatever had happened was the result of exhaustion and panic. A mind stretched too thin, but I knew better. It was still there, not around me, in me. I could feel it in the pauses between my thoughts, in the way my attention lingered on corners and dark spaces without conscious effort. I could feel it when my lips twitched upward at nothing, when my eyes stayed open a second too long. The calm was wrong. That is how I knew this was not the end. I started researching obsessively. Folklore, psychological disorders, sleep paralysis, shadow entities, thought forms, anything that suggested a weakness, a rule, a limit. I filled pages with notes, diagrams, theories. If the thing followed rules, I could break them. If it needed awareness, I could deny it. If it fed on fear, I could starve it. That was the lie I told myself. The truth came slower. Every time I tried to ignore it, the pressure increased. My head throbbed. My thoughts slipped. Words on the screen blurred. It did not punish me. It withdrew. And the absence was worse than the presence. Silence thick enough to choke on. Emptiness that begged to be filled. When I acknowledged it again, even briefly, the relief was immediate. That terrified me. I tested something dangerous on the third day. I invited someone over. My friend Mark had not heard from me in over a week. He was worried, said so over the phone, his voice tense. I asked him to come by, told him I was not feeling well. I did not explain more than that. I did not dare. When he arrived, the apartment felt different. Lighter, less crowded. Mark sat on the couch, scanning the room. "You look like hell," he said gently. I almost laughed. We talked about nothing important, about work, about mutual friends, about the weather. For a moment, just a moment, I felt normal, human. Then I noticed his eyes flick to the corner of the room. Just once. Barely a twitch. "You okay?" I asked, my heart hammering. "Yeah," he said. Too quickly. Just thought I saw, never mind. The air shifted. I felt it stir. Not angry. Interested. Mark smiled at something I had not said. The smile lingered too long. I ended the visit early. Made an excuse. Watched him leave with a wave that felt rehearsed, practiced. As soon as the door closed, I collapsed against it, shaking. The thing did not appear, but I could feel its approval like a hand on my shoulder. That night, I understood the rule I had been avoiding. It does not force itself on people. It waits for an opening. Fear opens the door. Attention invites it inside. But sharing lets it spread. I tried to destroy the apartment after that. Smashed mirrors, ripped down blinds, threw out anything reflective. I even tried fire, burning the notebook in the sink, watching the pages curl and blacken. The flames went out on their own. The ashes rearranged themselves. The notebook was back on the table the next morning, pristine. I screamed until my voice gave out. I tried leaving again, not running this time, leaving deliberately. Bags packed, phone charged. No looking back. I made it 3 blocks before the pressure started. A dull ache behind my eyes. A pulling sensation. Like something anchored deep inside me was being stretched too far. My thoughts blurred. The world tilted. Every reflective surface showed the same thing. Me, walking calmly, smiling faintly. While I staggered, panic desperate, I turned back before I passed out. The moment I crossed the apartment threshold, the pain vanished. The thing did not appear. It did not need to. I sat on the floor for a long time, staring at my hands. They were steady, too steady. That is when the final realization settled in. I was not trapped in the apartment. The apartment was trapped with me. I was the container now. The door. The longer I resisted, the more strain I felt. Not from it, but from myself. From holding something vast and patient, and smiling behind my eyes. The thing did not need me to obey. It needed me to accept. And acceptance was creeping in quietly, disguised as relief, as rest, as the promise that the fear could finally stop. All I had to do was stop fighting, stop noticing, stop caring, and let it look out through me. I stood and walked to the mirror. For the first time, I did not look away. My reflection met my gaze. I smiled. It smiled wider. I wish I could say there was a moment where everything snapped into place. A scream. A final struggle. A clear line between who I was and what I became. There was not. It happened the way rot happens. Slowly. Patiently. So gently you do not notice until the structure collapses under its own weight. The apartment stopped feeling wrong. That was the first sign. The pressure in the air faded. The corners softened. The shadows returned to being just shadows. I slept again. Deeply, dreamlessly. For the first time in weeks. When I woke, my body felt rested. Whole. The fear that had lived in my chest like a second heart was gone. I should have been relieved. Instead, I felt open. I went about my days like nothing had happened. I answered emails. I made coffee. I even laughed at a message from Mark, asking if I was feeling better. I was. Too better. I caught myself smiling in situations that did not warrant it, holding eye contact a beat too long, watching reflections instead of the things they reflected. But I did not stop, because stopping meant noticing, and noticing was how it began. The thing did not speak anymore. It did not need to. Its presence was woven into my thoughts now, subtle as instinct, a gentle pressure when I hesitated, a warmth when I complied. It never demanded, only encouraged. I realized something terrifying one afternoon. While standing in line at a cafe, I was watching people, not casually, intently, noticing the ones who stared at their phones too long, the ones who flinched at sudden noises, the ones who glanced into corners, mirrors, windows, searching for something they could not name. I felt a pull toward them, a recognition, and somewhere behind my eyes something smiled. I stopped fighting the urge to look. I stopped reminding myself to look away. I let my gaze linger in reflections, in glass. In darkness, I let the silence stretch, let the awareness bloom. The thing did not take control. It did not replace me. It aligned with me. That is the part no one tells you. Possession is not a takeover. It is an agreement, a slow convergence of want and permission until there is no difference between them. I still remember who I was. That is how I know it won. Sometimes, late at night, I feel something like regret flicker, faint, distant, a memory of fear, of resistance, of believing escape mattered, but regret requires distance, and there is no distance anymore. People started responding to me differently. Strangers smiled back more often. Conversations lasted longer. Eye contact lingered. A few people asked if I was okay, said I seemed different. I told them I was just well rested. That was not a lie. One night, while brushing my teeth, I noticed something in the mirror. Not the grin. Me, whole, calm, smiling softly. But my reflection smiled first. I did not flinch. I did not look away. I smiled wider. The apartment feels full now. Not crowded. Occupied. Content. The thing does not hide in corners anymore. It does not need to. It looks out through my eyes, listens through my ears, waits patiently as I move through the world. We notice things together. People who stare too long into darkness. People who feel watched. People who are curious, afraid, alone. I understand now why it chose me. I was always good at noticing. And now, so are you. Because you are still listening, still imagining the corners of your room, still aware of the reflections on your screen, that faint tension in your chest, that instinct to look behind you. Do not worry. It does not mean anything. Just remember, if you ever see it, if you ever notice the grin, try not to stare too long. It might notice you back.